Thank you, Chair. I can confirm you're live on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you for attending today's meeting of the Homeless and Housing Delivery Task Group. The Democratic Service Officer will now conduct a roll call to check who is present at the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Bubb?
Present.
Councillor Collett?
Present.
We've got Councillor Fry under Standing Order 34.
Present.
Councillor Kemp?
Present.
Councillor Ratcliffe?
Present.
Councillor Rust?
Present.
Councillor Sandal?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have the following officers present in the meeting: Nikki Patton, Housing Service Manager; Andy King, Senior Housing Services Manager; Richard Cooper, Housing Strategy Delivery Officer; and Curtis Bailey, Housing Needs Manager. Please may I remind members that this meeting has been recorded and streamed live via YouTube. By attending this meeting, you are giving your permission to be recorded and streamed. Thank you. Have any apologies for absent?
We've had apologies from Councillor Spikins.
Notes of the previous meeting. May I ask the panel if they agree the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 5th of February 2025?
Agree.
Any matters arising from those? None. Any declarations of interest on any items on the agenda? No. Urgent business? None that I'm aware of. Members present under Standing Order 34 have Councillor Fry. Welcome, Jackie. Chair's correspondence, I have none. So we'll go to the first item on the agenda, the Housing Needs Service, summary of current trends. Richard Cooper, please. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So we took a snapshot of the current housing situation as of Friday, the Friday just gone. So that's the 17th. So in that, we currently had 68 households in temporary accommodation. That is a slight reduction compared to last quarter, and even more of a reduction compared to this time last year. 68, around 68 seems to be the standard number that we've reached to at the moment, so it kind of hovers around that number. Of those, 35 in nightly paid households are in nightly paid accommodation. 32 of those are single people, so that just shows that family households are being in more settled accommodation that we've managed to provide for them on the whole. Regarding current homeless applications, that has dipped a little bit since compared to last quarter and compared to this time last year. There's a couple of things that we think has contributed to that. There's been a number of people that have approached us initially for assistance, but then not followed through the full process of making a homeless application. So that has reduced the number of people that have formally made a homeless application within the borough. Sorry about that. So the number of housing applications is reduced a little bit this month, this quarter, but we are expecting it to pick back up going forward into the winter months. Going forward. Can I have next slide, please, Andy? So the number of properties that have been advertised through the housing register has gone up. That has been a consistent trend since about March time, February, March time this year. So there is a significant uplift between Q1 and again this time last year. This is mainly down to what our main housing provider, Freebridge, being able to advertise more properties through the housing register. Of the people that are eligible for the housing register, their current number is 1,227. That's again quite consistent with the numbers that we've seen over the last year and a half. So that number hasn't really gone up or down too much. Currently, we have 3 people that we are known to be currently rough sleeping. They are receiving support from commission services and from the housing options team to try and end that as quickly as we can. Across the month of September, there were 7 people that were found to be rough sleeping, and with those, we provided support for them to end that rough sleeping. So work is continuing with the 3 people that are currently out, but the numbers that we have are currently still reduced compared to other areas in the borough and national trends. Next slide. Ethan. Oh, yeah, that's it. That's me then. Thank you.
Just a quick question. So out of the 7, they're not all within the borough of, they're not all within Kings Lynn, are they? They are across the whole borough.
Yeah, so when we consider rough sleeping, it is within the whole borough. So obviously people that rough sleep in rural areas and things like that can be difficult to find and difficult to help. But yeah, so this number is across the whole borough.
What steps do you take to make sure that you've included all the people that are rough sleeping?
So we work closely with our outreach team. So the outreach team, and once we get any notifications that people are rough sleeping or they could be rough sleeping, we pass that to the outreach team who go out and visit areas. Like I say, it can be rural areas, can be Kings Lynn, can be anywhere, and they will go and try and find those people, and they'll try at different times of the day, things like that, all sorts, to try and verify and then give the support that they can to those people. We always encourage people, if they find someone rough sleeping or have knowledge of someone rough sleeping, to use the StreetLink facility that's available on our website, and it's a national service as well. So that is the ability to report someone. You can also report yourself as rough sleeping through that tool as well. So that gives us a good location, because it can use location technology if they're using their phones and things like that as well. So we try as much as we can, and like say, the outreach will go anywhere that there's a report of.
Richard, any more questions for Richard? No, so we'll move on to Andy, who will provide us with a homeless and rough sleeping strategy, a summary of progress. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. So as you may be aware, we launched the Kings Lynn West Norfolk Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy in the autumn of last year. We are around about 9 months into delivering that, and this is a summary of where we've got to in terms of our progress in delivering that strategy. It's not exhaustive, but it gives you some of the highlights and some of the things that we've been working with partners on towards ending homelessness person by person, which is the vision of the strategy. So I've broken this up into 5 sections, which are the same as the 5 sections featured within the strategy. So the first is around prevention, so making sure that where we know that someone is at risk of homelessness, that we do everything we can to prevent them from becoming homeless. One key area of progress here is we've relaunched our Sustainable Housing Pathway Service since we last met. We work with other local partners on this to try and encourage people to take up this service for people at risk. One of the key drivers towards homelessness at the moment is family breakdown. So the SHIP service has some focus on working with families to try and mediate where homelessness can be prevented. Likewise, we also launched the Perfleet Intensive Support Service, which not only has a function for identifying people sleeping rough, as Richard was sharing earlier, but also trying to prevent that person from becoming homeless in the first place, and not leaving them where they are at the point where they get the keys to accommodation, but ensuring that they are settled into that accommodation before trying to link them in with other services. In terms of intervention, so this is the work that we do when somebody becomes homeless, if we haven't avoided it. A couple of areas of progress on this. Many of you will be aware that we have commissioned welfare cabins or pods across the borough. We had, I think, 13 or 14 initially. We reduced the number to 4 at Kingsway and Kings Lynn. Those pods are being decommissioned this month, So those pods will be removed. We will be replacing these with 4 central self-contained units that will be managed by Sanctuary Supported Living. And those pods, that service is aimed to provide a similar kind of service for people who would otherwise be sleeping rough, who would benefit from having self-contained accommodation, and there will be wraparound support for those individuals to enable them to then move on into suitable longer-term accommodation. We also launched a partnership which we call a by name partnership, and we launched this in the summer of 2025. This is a multi-agency partnership that involves partners from health, accommodation services, probation, anyone who can support people who are some distance away from having their housing needs sustainably met. So these might not be people who are sleeping rough, they might be people who are staying on friends' floors, people who are bouncing in and out of emergency accommodation, for people who need a multi-agency approach to ensure that their homelessness is ended. So that's been launched this year. We've already seen some really impressive results from that in terms of people who were sort of arrived at the group quite in quite a lot of difficulty, and for whom a multi-agency approach has helped them towards ending their homelessness. In terms of accommodation, we have launched a partnership between ourselves and some of the major supported accommodation providers in the borough to improve the flow of people into supported housing. So that rather than there being lots of different pathways into lots of different accommodation types, there's a single pathway into supported accommodation. That's helped us with sort of sharing information, and we're going to develop and expand that over the coming months. We've also been working with the Perfectly Trust around single person accommodation that incentivises employment. So this is accommodation for people who maybe have experienced homelessness in the past, and who, as part of their journey out of homelessness, are now in work. And the accommodation is set up in terms of its pricing and in terms of its location to maximise those opportunities. So it's been a really good, solid piece of work between local business owners and the Perfectly Trust and the council. And finally, on accommodation, we completed our allocation policy review. This was approved by council in July. We're going to be going through the process in November of rebanding people who are on the register. So there'll be a 3-week period from the 1st of November where new applications to the register will be paused, and people within the register will be rebanded. In terms of recovery, so this is the work that we do towards ensuring that people who become homeless don't become homeless again, and that formerly homeless people are empowered to thrive in the borough. This is a big piece of work, which we've made some initial starts on over the past few months. We've been working with Boost, who are an organisation who support people into employment who may have struggled to gain and sustain employment in the past. And with the Perfectly Trust, who I think have got a caseload of about 30 people that they work with towards helping them to find and sustain accommodation. We've also been working to help people have access to leisure and cultural facilities, because somebody's journey out of homelessness doesn't stop at the point where they receive the keys to their door. Anything that we can do to ensure that somebody is bedded into the borough, is able to access the kind of services and the kind of facilities that anyone else can access, is really important. And we've been doing some initial work for Live Leisure around this, around access to cultural facilities, access to leisure facilities, hoping to announce a little bit more on that in the coming weeks and months as that develops.
Councillor Culp, do you have a question?
Yeah, regarding accommodation.
Yes.
Can I have an update on the new properties that we were building at North Industrial?
Is this the Reed Way properties? Did you want to answer?
Come back at finish with that and then.
Oh yeah, should I?
Yeah.
Should I come to that?
Okay, yeah,
right.
fine, no problem.
So just finally, in terms of systems and service culture, so this is everything that we do to underpin the strategy. So all of the partnership work, the work to involve people who have got lived experience of homelessness, all of this work is kind of linked in. So we now have a fully operational implementation partnership. This is something that had been paused for a while, but it's now got sort of fresh impetus, fresh kind of enthusiasm around getting behind the homelessness strategy. We have about 20 partner agencies involved in that. We then have a number of subgroups that focus on doing the doing around preventing homelessness, helping people recover from homelessness, finding suitable accommodation, and involving people with lived experience in the process. I think, if I'm honest with you, we've still got further work to do to develop our work in terms of embedding lived experience into the development of services. But just as an example, when we developed our allocation policy, I think just under 100 people out of the 200 odd that were involved in the development of the allocation policy had lived experience of homelessness. And I've publicly thanked before services like Sanctuary Supported Living and others, and the Perfect Trust and others who have supported with that work towards ensuring that the voices of lived experience are included in and help shape what we produce as a borough. That's all I had in terms of kind of progress so far. So did you want to answer the question?
Can I come back in 2 moments, because I've just waiting on something coming through from a team member who's working on that kinds of column. So can I come back in a couple of moments, please?
Okay.
Okay, anyone got any more questions for Andy?
Yes, I've just got a question about care leavers, how we're prioritising the needs of care leavers.
It's a good question. So this is something that is included within the new allocation policy. People who have had experience with the care system will see some form of priority. Is there?
Yeah. So there is changes in legislation around local connection around care leavers. So now anybody that's considered a care leaver would be entitled to approach any local authority's housing register within the whole of the UK up until their age of 25. So that was quite a recent change that came in June, July time. Regarding our own policy, we have a policy around helping care leavers move on. So once they've received the support from Norfolk County Council or any other county council that they've been in care in, we will help assist them in moving into more settled, sustained accommodation. Apart from that, so that is written within the home choice policy that they will receive the highest high band to enable that to come through. Yeah.
And we do have our care leavers covenant, which is continuously being worked on so that it is meaningful as opposed to just a piece of paper.
Yeah, and also they will be allocated a housing options officer who will walk them through the process and give them any additional support that they need, as well as their support worker that they'll get from the social services as well.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's just to make a comment. The Castle housing provision in Downham Market. I've been lucky enough to have a tour of those premises. Purfleet invited the local the councillors who represent the wards in that area to have a tour and talked about their aspirations for working with local employers as well. And it is a very good quality development. I know they've had good support to do it. So I hope that the people that are housed there will feel that they've got good quality accommodation. They can feel proud of it, and hope to incentivise work to maintain it and then move on ultimately. So yeah, no, I was very pleased to see that. It's good to see that we're using different techniques to help people progress, and not just the initial housing. Thank you.
I think it's just worth noting on that, Councillor Ratcliffe. I think when I mentioned about sort of partnership, I mentioned about the private sector, about the council, and about the Purfleet. But what I didn't mention, and I should have mentioned, is the work of the town and the borough in terms of that, and how actually it's a project that's been embraced by the town and embraced by the mayor, and so on and so forth. So that's been really key, and thank you to work you've been doing, the work that you and other local councillors have been doing around that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the first people move in.
So Councillor Cobb, what I can say is the scheme is proceeding. As you know, there have been some financial challenges around funding because of the type of construction. But the team have assured me that they are looking to continue. Broadland Housing Association will be delivering the scheme, and it is continuing. I don't have a likely delivery date as of yet, but what I can do is circulate that once it's known to the group and bring that back to the next public meeting. But there have been some amendments just in terms of how the scheme is financed to enable it to go forward, because it doesn't tend to fit some of the criteria around some of the general grant funding that we're able to receive. But it is continuing and it will be delivered. I just need to give you a timescale around that.
Lovely, thanks for the information.
Any more questions for Andy on the strategy? No, so priorities for the next 6 months. That's you again, Andy. Thank you.
So the next part follows, roughly speaking, the same kind of pattern as the previous. So I set out the priorities for the next 6 months according to those 5 strands again. And again, this isn't exhaustive. We have a very ambitious homelessness and rough sleeping strategy that's a living, breathing document that we're continuing to kind of add to and develop as we go along. But this gives you some of the ideas of some of the things that we're going to be focusing on over the next 6 months. One of the biggest areas of focus is going to be around the private rented sector for prevention. We don't have a date yet as to when the Renters' Rights Act is going to be enacted. But we need to prepare ourselves for it. And as part of that, we're working on a proactive campaign with letting agents, with landlords around trying to understand their needs and wishes in terms of trying to help introduce people at risk of homelessness to local landlords and trying to maximise the private rented sector where it's good quality, affordable, sustainable accommodation. We've been working as a team on this, so alongside colleagues from SHIPS, the Sustainable Housing Pathway Service, from the Charity Shelter, from Housing Standards and other local agencies, and trying to bring together a shared message for landlords and tenants that will help guide the process of finding a private rented sector tenancy, managing that and bringing it to an end if needs be. So that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet in that respect.
Can I ask a quick question on landlords and tenants? Would this come under almshouse charities as well? Or are they a different?
I think it would be likely that that would be excluded from this. What we're tending to look for is sort of your kind of private sector accommodations, so people who might own a portfolio of properties. There might be shared learning from it, so there's no reason that an almshouse provider couldn't take a copy of that and think, well, actually these principles around managing a tenancy, these principles around selecting a good tenant, they're universal principles, but in terms of the law around, say, ending an almshouse tenancy, that's going to be different from the law around ending a private rented tenancy.
Right.
It's not an exact fit.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So in terms of intervention, another key area of focus over the next 6 months is around designing sufficient emergency accommodation to meet need. We touched upon the figures of people who are currently in temporary accommodation and nightly paid. What we're looking at is doing everything we can to reduce and eliminate the use of nightly paid bed and breakfast accommodation where possible. We're looking to develop a temporary accommodation policy that we'll take to Cabinet in the new year. We're also looking at where we can either procure additional temporary accommodation units or reconfigure what we've already got to meet the changing demographic of the people who are accessing temporary accommodation. Alongside that, we are looking to improve the way we communicate with homeless applicants. So at the moment, we put together what's called a personal housing plan for anybody who approaches us who's homeless or at risk of homelessness. And one of the things that, and this is a theme through the homelessness strategy, is around good communication. So the personal housing plan is intended to be a two-way street between ourselves and the homeless applicant, and we want to make the absolute most of that. Give customers, homeless applicants, an opportunity to express what they think is going to work for them, and to try and work with them with that, and to see the work towards ending someone's homelessness as a joint enterprise between ourselves and the homeless applicant. In terms of accommodation, we're going to be doing some work around the pathway of supported accommodation. So there are regulations that are going to be published in the coming months around supported housing. These regulations were designed to crack down on areas of the country where people have maybe set up non-commissioned accommodation, which sometimes is quite poor quality, sometimes provides quite poor levels of support. In King's Lynn and West Norfolk, we don't have that problem. We have a good relationship with our supported housing providers, but nevertheless, it's the same across the country. So we're going to be working with providers towards helping them navigate the new regulations. And another piece of work we're doing is continuing to work with key providers around void properties, trying to keep a sort of with ourselves and our key housing providers. We have seen some fruit from that. I think that's reflected in the number of properties that have come on the register over the last year or so. But that continues to be a priority, because clearly the fewer voids we've got, the more properties are available for people who are homeless or at risk. In terms of recovery, rather, both of these, I admit, are in fairly early stages of development, but both of these are areas that were featured in the homelessness strategy, and I think both are areas that if we make progress in these, that we will see real results, especially for some of those people who are furthest away from having their housing needs sustainably met. So one of these is looking at what our offer is for people who are seeking to address alcohol dependency. This is quite a low number of people in the borough, but nevertheless, it's a number of people who are who maybe struggle the most to sustain accommodation. Another is around access to mainstream health services, that people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness have the same ability to access primary health care, maybe looking at what's creating barriers for them and working alongside health providers locally to overcome those barriers. So this is going to be a focus of our next recovery subgroup meeting in December this year, and hopefully we should have something more substantial to bring to you next time we meet. And then finally, on the areas of focus, is around the system support and the service culture we have in place. So those things that underpin the other strands of the strategy. We're continuing to do work to develop links with key services, with council departments, with elected members. We've got some plans in place to go to some of the other sites within the council to talk to them about the services we provide, to upskill them. So, you know, very basic things like what you do when you find someone sleeping rough. So those kind of key basic messages. Those of you who have used a council laptop over the past week or so might have spotted the World Homelessness Day screensaver. Again, just giving some very brief messages out to members of staff and elected members as to what we do and how to help. We've got an all-councillor briefing booked in for the 27th of November prior to the council meeting. So again, it's an opportunity to kind of communicate the work that we do. And then again, around communications, we're looking to refresh some of our advice letters and communications. Again, trying to debunk some of what might seem like some quite complicated legal language around when we make decisions when processing people's homelessness applications. So that there's, for example, the front page that lays out basics with the detail still there for people who read it. So again, like I said, there's 50 odd items on the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. I've probably covered about 10 or 12, but it gives you a flavour of what we're working on over the coming months. And we've got a really dedicated team working on all of that, and we're trying to share out the resource, not just internally, but in terms of the work that partners do to own that whole process and to work together towards delivering the strategy. I'm happy to take questions.
Hopefully. On the advice letters and communication, there's only a half dozen councillors here. I mean, there are 55 of us. I think it would be nice if we could have something sent out to each councillor so that if someone comes to them, they've got a bit more information, because I think we're only a very small group who perhaps understand our strategy and our links and our focuses and where to go. But perhaps the others don't, because they perhaps haven't had it. But if someone does come to them, at least they've got some more information. So maybe a little pack for us councillors to have, so we know where to point people in the right direction. So rather than all come to you, because it's probably where they come, but occasionally I've found over the last few years that more and more people are coming to us for advice. We're more like a citizens advice bureau than a borough councillor dealing with dog bins and grass cutting. It's becoming more and more on housing, benefit, you know. So I think if we could have a little pack at some point that we could all have as councillors as well.
I mean, one idea that springs to mind, we've been talking about, so before somebody is owed a legal duty towards their homelessness, we might issue what's called an advice letter. So this is just at the moment it's about 10 to 12 pages and it covers everything. It's detailed, but it's not exactly user friendly, if I'm honest with you. What we're looking at is something where we have standard kind of advice leaflets of things like relationship breakdown, or your private tenancy is coming to an end, or such and such. And then we would put because you can't just send out generic things to everything, we have to put a front page to that. But if we had something like that and we shared that with councillors, then you'd have in one place, my landlord's selling up, what do I do? And you've got a 4-page basics on that or something else. If that would be helpful, then that would be.
I've had people come to me, so I have the understanding that you say to people, do not leave your property, but someone else might say, well, find somewhere else to live. So I think we all need to know, because people have probably never dealt with anyone coming to them about a homelessness issue, whereas I have, so I have a bit more of an understanding that some councillors may not.
And actually one of the kind of the key principles of the strategy is try and get as much information out to the borough as possible. You know, I think one of the things I didn't talk about in the presentation was the idea of having a homeless champion, so that in any given setting there's at least one person who has sufficient knowledge of homelessness to be able to point people in the right direction. So our secondary schools, our big employers, etc., etc. And that all links together really, but it's all about trying to make sure that we get people the advice they need as early as possible, and then where there's kind of technical expertise, we're there to provide that. But anyone can provide signposting, anyone can provide initial information.
Could I echo that and ask if there's anything that could be put on the council website as well, if you're providing it to councillors? Because I do find the website very useful. I know it could be improved, but it's at least we think, oh yeah, we can go and look it up and then you know, pass it on to people that get in touch.
100%, So we make sure that things mirror what's on the website mirrors what we produce in.
Sorry, it's a bit more work for you guys, but
it's already on our work stream.
Worth it in the long run.
But it would help a lot more people, wouldn't it?
It was one of the reasons why I wanted all councillors to have a talk from the team, because there is so much that they do. There's so much work, but not everybody is aware of it. So
Something that has just occurred to me as you asked that, I know we've got the briefing next month, at the end of next month after the full council, but as this week we've just publicised the new housing allocations policy, there might be some fairly immediate contacts, people concerned about that. If you do start seeing some recurring themes of contacts and there's information that can be passed back to residents, if you could let councillors know or let us know where that's available, and then we could help to respond to those fairly swiftly, that will be very helpful.
Thank you. I was going to say we were thinking of having a frequently asked questions page on the Homelessness website, but it might be just worth making sure, because I think when we talked about it, we were talking about it in terms of longer term FAQs, but it might be worth having something for the next.
As a short, sharp for the time being.
6 weeks. to answer some of those initial questions.
Yeah, especially if you're going to shut down the
Yeah, and
the allocations thing through the weeks.
Yep.
People will be going, "Oh, I can't log on," and I think that's something that needs to be put out there that you are going to. But
We could send the
sort of.
FAQs, the link to all members when they're produced, so that can go out, so as everyone
Yeah.
knows where to have a look.
Yes.
yeah, thank you. That'd be brilliant. Got any more questions or comments?
No.
No. Okay, so I'll close the meeting. And the date of the next meeting, we'll arrange that when there's some more updates.
Just on that, I'd be quite keen to have come to more frequent updates on these, because we've covered a lot of material today. But obviously there's a lot of work going on all the time, and it'd be very helpful to have more frequent updates. So again, that's more work, but
I was going to
I
say,
appreciate that.
shall we maybe, Emma, if we put something in for January then, so that we've got something in now rather than get into January and thinking, oh, we haven't had one of these for a while. So yeah, we'll liaise diaries.
Sorry, and because there is, if there is another policy going to be presented to Cabinet at some point, it might be useful for us to be able to review that before it.
That would be good
presented.
timing, actually.
Yeah.
If we're looking at,
January.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think E&C is quite early on in January, so it might be better if we have one in December.
yeah. Are we still recording this?
We
Okay, I'll talk to that.
Yes.
thank you.
Well, I'll close the meeting now.